going to take more and more and more money from Canadians and call them, say that they're making bad choices, say that they're bad Canadians for choosing to live in rural areas, choosing to drive to work and school, Mr. Speaker, that is never the approach that a Conservative government will take.
Déclaration des députés, statements by members. L'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher des Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the price of gas went up again to $1.43 in Montreal recently. And what is the Conservative solution? Cut the carbon tax and build more pipelines. But in Quebec, there is no carbon tax, and gas is still expensive. Their leader even admitted last December that the lack of new pipelines was keeping the price of oil low. Well, building pipelines to increase supply will only make gas more expensive. So rather than wasting billions on the oil industry, what we need to do is invest in public transport and green transport. That's how we will reduce demand for oil, and we'll manage to fight climate change and keep the price of gas at an acceptable level for consumers. That's what acting responsibly looks like.
Member for Steveston, Richmond East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to Joanna Wardley. She passed away this March. When Joanna's son Steve was suffering with HIV/AIDS nearly 20 years ago, Joanna and her husband Brian felt they had nowhere to turn for support. She vowed that she would help others when she retired, and she stayed true to her word. Joanna and others founded the Heart of Richmond AIDS Society in 1997, and later the Gil West Clinic at the Richmond Hospital. Thanks to Joanna and Brian and like-minded advocates, Richmond residents living with HIV/AIDS and hepatitis C now have treatment and support closer to home. Mr. Speaker, I wish to extend my sympathies to Joanna's husband Brian and their family. May you find comfort knowing Joanna leaves a legacy of love and compassion.
Good.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
3 years ago, Clark and Kimberly Moran began the process of adopting a Nigerian orphan by the name of Ao. They did everything by the book. They used a reputable adoption agency, checked out the orphanage where Ao lived, and complied with all of the laws of Nigeria and British Columbia. 9 months ago, the Morans traveled to Africa to pick up their son, and that's where the story took a terrible turn. You see, this Minister of Immigration refused to issue travel documents for Ao. The Morans have done everything right and provided this Liberal government with copious evidence proving that they are the rightful parents of Ao. Yet for almost a year, the Morans have been separated from each other, living thousands of miles apart as they trade off being parents to their child. They are among the many Canadian families who have felt the cold shoulder of this immigration minister. How heartless. Is this what the Prime Minister meant when he promised sunny ways? When will the minister do the right thing and bring Ao home?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Ajax.
Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Speaker, thousands of residents in Ajax and across Canada are observing Ramadan, and to them I say Ramadan Mubarak. For the 5th year in a row, I'm going to be fasting in support of a phenomenal charity that's blowing up across the world called Give 30, where we fast and take the money we save from fasting and give it to local food banks to help those that are in need. Ramadan is a powerful tool to connect us through fasting to the suffering of others. Unfortunately, here in Canada, we still have those that are suffering. We've made remarkable progress. We're 3 years ahead of our targets in poverty reduction, lifting 300,000 children out of poverty. But as we observe Ramadan, this is an excellent opportunity for us to say, inshallah, we can get rid of poverty in this country together overall. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Disnethi-Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, this week is Mental Health Week, and I want to get loud about mental health care in northern Saskatchewan. In my writing, getting the help you need can be complicated. Mental health workers are hired by tribal councils, by reserves, and by the Athabasca and Saskatchewan health authorities to work in clinics and hospitals, always motivated by the fact that they're helping the elders, the youth in our communities to live better one day at a time. Talking about what you're going through can be very hard, but it is only through sharing your experience that you can get help. We all deserve to feel good and to live with dignity, and mental health care workers in Northern Saskatchewan are helping their communities do that every single day. So thank you to all the mental health workers across Northern Saskatchewan. I also want to wish a happy birthday to the Petite Triplets from Buffalo Narrows who are celebrating their 52nd birthday today. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to thank and congratulate Out Saskatoon for their leadership in supporting LGBTQ2 Canadians on the prairies and across the country. Their response to high levels of LGBTQ2 youth homelessness led to the building of Pride Home, a 5-bed home that gets kids who have been kicked out of their home simply for being LGBTQ2 into a safer space so they can finish school and build their lives. Out Saskatoon is also a driving force behind Enchanté, Canada's new national network of LGBTQ2 serving organizations. Recently, I announced $1.1 million in funding to Out Saskatoon from the Ministry of Women and Gender Equality and from the Public Health Agency of Canada. They will use this funding to get to the roots of gender-based violence in our community and will train officials to make sure that we put an end to this violence. To the whole team at Out Saskatoon, thank you. You inspire, you save lives, you make us prairie proud.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government has politicized the issue of provision of fighter jets. There was interference, and there was an imprudent promise not to buy the F-35s. The reality is that they're not taking the defense of our land seriously, nor are they taking our relationship with our allies seriously. There are thousands of jobs in aerospace, and in 2015, the Liberal platform talked about a government that would have an evidence-based approach rather than inventing evidence to support their policies. Well, that means you need to listen to the recommendations of the Auditor General and experts. The constituents of my riding are calling on the government now to look at evidence in order to improve our regional economy, which would greatly benefit from the economic benefits of the base of Bagotville. The Honourable Member for Avignon and Métis-Pantin-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, today I want to recognize the incredible mobilization of business people in Matane to save the Matane port. Time was running out to find a solution to save the quay's load-bearing capacity before it was fully renovated. And the people in my riding rolled up their sleeves and got to work. Instead of accepting defeat, they mobilized, they worked together, and they got creative. I'm so proud to say today that a solution has been developed by a local company from Matane called Construction CEG. The solution will allow the Port of Matane to continue its operations until the reconstruction is completed. I'm proud of the $1.5 million contribution that our government made to the project. I've always said that we had to work locally in order to develop solutions, and this outcome is the proof of that. The Port of Matane has always been one of my priorities. I want to thank the local business people, the Port of Matane Emergency Coalition, elected officials, the Minister of Transport, and his team. Together, we made a real difference for our local businesses and employees. Honourable Member for Outremont. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've done several times, last Friday I joined the Cafeteria Multicaf team in order to serve hundreds and hundreds of residents' meals. In my riding, the Myland Mission prepares 10,000 grocery bags for families who don't have enough to eat.
No child in this country should go to sleep hungry. No child should go to school hungry. Our government has already lifted over 800,000 people out of poverty, including more than 300,000 children. We have just increased the Canada Child Benefit. It's working, and we want to help families even more. Under the leadership of this Prime Minister, we are tackling childhood poverty, and we are making real progress.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has let down Canadians who voted for him in 2015. He promised the budget would balance itself. It hasn't. He promised huge investments in infrastructure. Turns out the money's stuck in Ottawa. He promised real action on climate change. Instead, Canadians receive more taxes. He promised transparency and open government. And then, oh yeah, he was personally accused of politically interfering in the justice system behind closed doors. Now he's got one of his own members of the Privy Council testifying against him. He lost the ambassador to China. He embarrassed Canada during his trip to India. He confused the Prime Minister of Japan with China. He pledged $50 million to a celebrity's cause in a flippant tweet. He said oil workers have social impacts in the communities they work in. He forgot to mention Alberta in his Canada 150 speech. He spends more time on the beaches of Tofino than in his own office. I'm running out of time here, Mr. Speaker, but it's clear that this Prime Minister is not as advertised.
The Honourable Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, our government has introduced amendments to the Canada National Park Act in Budget 2019 to take steps to establish the Tai-Dene National Park Reserve. I want to acknowledge the work done by our Minister of Environment and Climate Change, the government of Northwest Territories, and the community and people of Lutuke, the Dene and Métis in their historical territory. Tai-Dene is a sacred place to the Lutuke Denisoni people. 14,000 square kilometers will be designated as a federal national park reserve. The park reserve, near the eastern shores of the Great Slave Lake, encompasses vast and extraordinary terrain, ranging from forest to tundra. There are cliffs and islands, lakes, rivers, and waterfalls, and it includes the deepest freshwater in North America. Tai-Dene is also culturally rich, including traditional and present-day hunting, fishing, gathering, and spiritual places used by Aboriginal people. Congratulations to Lutuke and Chief Daryl Marlowe.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this week is Mental Health Week, and we need to get loud about what mental health is. We need to look beyond moments of crisis and consider our mental well-being on a day-to-day basis. We need to talk about the real-world health impacts of having a sense of purpose, strong relationship, feeling connected to our communities, and being well-equipped to cope with crisis. This past month, the Parliamentary Mental Health Caucus brought together advocates, researchers, and Canadians with lived experience to discuss the gaps between the deficit in the mental health services from a wide range of perspectives, seeking consensus on the path forward. I'd like to thank all participants for being part of the conversation and encourage them and all Canadians to get loud this week and take that conversation to the national level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, whether it's the huge deficits, the ethical breaches, the lack of affordability, the lack of leadership, everyone can now see the true face of the Prime Minister and his government. The Liberal government was never reliable or effective, even though the Prime Minister had promised to do things differently. Worse, he promised that he would be a new kind of politician, but he's had scandal after scandal since 2015. He promised to balance the budget by 2019, but we have a huge deficit. We deserve better. He promised to reduce the tax burden, but now his carbon tax is making life more difficult for Canadians. We deserve better. He promised to be ethical and transparent, but he's cheating and acting unscrupulously. We deserve better. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is not and will never be up to the challenge of running our country. Let's help Canadians be proud to be Canadian again, because we deserve better.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, since 2015, Canada has re-emerged as a significant contributor to the international community. Canadians across the country know how essential the brave members of the Canadian Armed Forces are to the collective security of our allies. They speak to me about our support for Ukraine through our renewal of Operation Unifier, our work on peacekeeping training in Poland, and Canada's role as the leader of the multinational NATO battle group in Latvia as part of Operation Reassurance. We continue to work towards a strong NATO alliance that will assure the peace in Eastern Europe and deter the rising tide of aggression perpetuated by Vladimir Putin. Mr. Speaker, the first Latvian to sit in this House was the MP for Parkdale High Park, my predecessor, Sarmita Bolte. So it is with great honor that today I, alongside the Minister of Defense, have the privilege of welcoming Latvian Defense Minister Artis Pabriks to Parliament. Canada stands with you, Minister, with Latvia, and with our Eastern European allies. Paldies.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, in my statement today, I want to give a voice to Eloise, Maude, and Etienne, and the other members of the Environmental Committee from the Pionnier Secondary School. They have a message about climate change for the members of this House, and I quote, "As young people who are aware of the crisis of climate change, we don't understand why you're hesitant to take action. Know that your decisions are putting our lives in danger. You're not listening to the warnings of scientists who have been calling for a green transition for years. Our concerns have been brushed off, but they are legitimate. What good are your departments if the planet becomes uninhabitable? At this point, the economy is far from being our priority. We believe that without nature, the future has no value. We hope that you will finally start listening to us today. We want the government to be at the heart of every decision that you make. We want you to stop putting everything off until tomorrow. We want to have the right to a future. Mr. Prime Minister, whether you do it for Canadians or for your own children, please take action." End quote. And I want to... I would just remind the Honourable Member that he needs to direct his comments. I would just remind him that he needs to direct his comments to the chair.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Sometimes politics can feel like online dating. In 2015, many Canadians were wooed by the Liberal leader. He had a convincing profile. He looked hip. He wore nice clothes, hung out with all the cool kids, went to all the best parties, and that hair, Mr. Speaker. But the guy who showed up to the date wasn't quite who he thought he would be. The guy in the profile turned out to be arrogant, self-involved, and out of touch. He stood us up to take an illegal vacation.
Order. Members know that the rules do not permit language that is insulting, and that's very clear, and I've made that very clear. And I would be more than happy to refer members to the page in the book on procedure that says so. The Honourable Member on
The Honourable Member for Acadie Bathurst. Mr. Speaker, the crews have put the traps into the water, and I'm very proud to announce to the House that the lobster season is officially open in the southern St. Lawrence and in my riding of Acadie Bathurst.
I export over $3 billion worth of snow crab and lobster each year, and did you know that over 73,000 Canadians make their living working in the fishing industry? Étant moi-même fils de pêche.
I myself was a fisher, and so I want to take this opportunity to wish an excellent season to everyone working in the fishing industry. I want to thank the fishers, the processors, the producers, and aquaculture workers, and I wish them a successful and sustainable season. Thanks to their commitment to the environment and to a sustainable industry, we can leave a healthy fishing industry to the next generation.
I'd like to thank the Minister of Fisheries and Ocean and Coast Guard. Under his leadership, our government found a balanced solution that reduced the size of the restricted fishing zone while maintaining the utmost protection for the North Atlantic right whale. Bonne saison à tous, Monsieur le Président.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, at the Library of Archives Canada, 34 people with developmental disabilities were earning $1.15 an hour honorarium in order to sort and shred some papers. They were told most recently that their program was going to be cut and they were going to lose their jobs. Families of people with developmental disabilities are very concerned, and they're asking the Prime Minister to reverse the cut. Will he do so?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member opposite for her question. People with disabilities remain underrepresented in the workforce. Working with partners to address the challenges they face in securing gainful employment is important to us. That's why we're taking action to help people, regardless of their disability, to fully participate and be included in society and in the Canadian economy. We move forward with historic Accessibility Canada Act and significant investments taking the lead in advancing inclusion for persons with disabilities. As for the program the member opposite mentioned, the existing contract has been extended, and we're working with the organization to find meaningful...
Honourable member for Milton.
The most difficult thing for families dealing with developmental disabilities is being told that their loved ones aren't wanted. And in fact, what this government said is that they were no longer operationally required, so I hope that they'll do better in dealing with this going forward. Another problem they have, of course, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that the immigration system is broken. We heard that today from the Auditor General himself, and I'm wondering if the Prime Minister can tell us whether or not he will be accepting the recommendations of the Auditor General, implementing them, and fixing this problem that his government caused.
Honourable Prime Minister.
We thank the Office of the Auditor General for the report, and we will, of course, be looking carefully at all the recommendations. But what the report clearly demonstrates is how inefficient and poorly resourced the asylum system was when it was left behind by the Conservatives. We committed to fix the underfunded asylum system, and work is already bearing fruit. Budget 2019 includes the largest investment in the history of the IRB to help it make fast, fair, and final decisions. We've also cleared the legacy backlogs, where Conservatives had people waiting up to 8 years for a final hearing.
Member for Milton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on February 21st, 2017, the official opposition started asking questions about the Roxham Road illegal express entry that this government had opened up through Twitter. Mr. Speaker, it's taken them over 2.5 years to actually admit to the fact and be told by the Auditor General that there is indeed a problem. What do? In a complete lack of leadership, they blame something from somebody else's regime 5 years ago. They take no responsibility themselves, and it lies at their feet. What will they do to fix this system?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservatives attempting to stir up fears amongst Canadians about things that they don't need to be worried about. We have made sure that every single person crossing our borders, whether it's legally or illegally, gets processed according to all our rules. We have seen over the past years all around the world an increase in migrations, in asylum seekers happening everywhere, and Canada is not immune to that, but we have a strong immigration system that continues to apply all its steps to everyone crossing the border.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, today the Auditor General was scathing in his description of how the Prime Minister allowed abuse of our Canadian immigration system, a system that used to be fair and compassionate. The Auditor General's findings are damning and clearly prove that the system is broken because of the Prime Minister's illegal border crossing program at Roxham Road. When will the Prime Minister apologize to Canadians and the whole world for having normalized the abuse of our immigration system? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Auditor General for their report. The report shows clearly how the asylum-seeking system was inefficient and poorly resourced by the previous government. We were committed to resolving the problem, and our work is already giving fruit. Budget 2019 include the highest investments in history in the IRB so that they can make final decisions quickly and fairly. We have also eliminated the legacy backlogs from the Conservatives, under which people had to wait 8 years for their final hearing. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, all the Prime Minister is saying is completely false. In 2012, the Harper government put measures in place to accelerate this system. But who was it who sent out a tweet inviting the whole world to Canada? 40,000 people since then have crossed the border. The system is broken. The Auditor General confirmed that. Will the Prime Minister stop just speaking foolishness and do something to fix the problem? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives are stirring up fears, trying to make them fear the system when we have a system that is strong and that applies to everyone crossing our borders, whether they're crossing legally or illegally. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that throughout the world, we are in an era now where people are crossing borders more and more, looking for help or a new life, and we in Canada are not immune to that. But we have a rigorous, strong system that applies to everyone.
For Burnaby South, Joel.
Mr. Speaker, the new UN report on biodiversity concluded that 1 million species are facing extinction. We're losing natural habitat and marine diversity at an alarming rate. According to UBC professor Kai Chan, who helped write the report, we need fundamental and structural change. Canadians rejected the Conservative approach, but Liberals have delivered more words than action. Will the Liberals now support our Environmental Bill of Rights, which enshrines healthier environments as a right, protects habitats, and compels government action?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, while the NDP proposes more words, we are actually taking real action. Our actions include putting a price on pollution, phasing out coal, investments in public transit and green infrastructure, cutting methane emissions, reaching our targets for protecting biodiversity, protecting marine and land ecosystems. The NDP and Conservatives continue to pick between the environment and the economy. We are always going to build both for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Mr. Speaker, this report clearly shows that we're running a real risk of losing more than 1 million species of plants and animals. They also pointed out, however, that by making different choices, we can get different results, better results. We have a plan to protect our environment, which does not leave workers or communities behind. The Liberal plan is failing our planet. What is the Prime Minister going to do to truly protect our habitats, marine diversity, and the diversity of our ecosystems? Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are proud that as a government we are reaching our goals to protect marine zones and habitats. It's very important to protect diversity, and we're taking action, but we're doing more than that, Mr. Speaker. We put a price on pollution. We have phased out coal. We are cutting methane, investing in infrastructure. And we have also provided rebates on electric vehicles. We are helping provinces invest in cleaner technology. We know that ensuring a good future is by investing in the economy and the environment. Mr. Speaker, the experts tell us all the same thing. The Liberals are not doing enough. In Ontario, a young family does not have the means to pay the $250,000 in drugs that their son needs to survive. A universal pharmacare system would go a very long way in helping this family and families from one ocean to the other. The evidence supporting a universal pharmacare plan is clear. So what is the Prime Minister waiting for? Mr. Speaker, no Canadian should have to choose between medication they need and food. Under Budget 2019, we are laying the foundation for a national pharmacare system. We are creating the Canada Drug Agency that will work with the provinces and territories to negotiate drug prices for all Canadians. That will reduce costs up to $3 billion per year. Furthermore, we are putting $500 million into a national strategy to access drugs for rare diseases. We know this is important, and that's why we're moving forward.
For parents of 6-year-old Joshua suffering from cystic fibrosis, it's clear Canada's funding system for medication is broken. For so many families, needed medication is out of reach. Experts say Canada is, quote, an outlier internationally. The Liberal agency will have a limited effect and proposes little more than a Band-Aid. New Democrats are listening, and we've proposed a bold solution. So will Liberals adopt our Pharmacare for All plan and bring life-saving medication within reach of every Canadian family?
Hear, hear.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no Canadian should ever have to choose between paying for prescriptions and putting food on the table. With the Budget 2019, we're laying the foundation for the implementation of a national pharmacare program. We've created the Canadian Drug Agency that, working with provinces and territories, will negotiate drug prices for all Canadians. And unlike what the NDP is actually suggesting, it will reduce drug prices by around $3 billion a year, which is not nothing, Mr. Speaker. On top of that, we're moving forward with $500 million for a national strategy.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, in a speech highlighting risks in the Arctic from Russia and China, the U.S. Secretary of State questioned Canada's sovereignty in the Arctic. This is a direct result of the weak leadership of this Prime Minister and our deteriorating reputation around the world. Yes, it is. What is the Prime Minister prepared to do to demonstrate to the international community Canada's sovereignty over the Arctic?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Northwest Passage is a Canadian passage. It's internationally recognized. Our government is standing up to defend our interests. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs reasserted that today. Canadian sovereignty in the North is long-standing and well-established. It's where Canadians live and work. I lived there for 6 years. We will continue to defend our sovereignty, the peoples, and the communities in the North, and our national interests.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, it's been long-standing until this Prime Minister. He's hurt our reputation around the world, and they claim to be calling other countries for help in our dispute with China. But as this Arctic slight shows, friends and foes alike don't take this Prime Minister seriously. He's too weak to appoint an ambassador. He's too weak to bring a WTO trade challenge. He's too weak to even pick up the damn phone, Mr. Speaker. Canada's never been so alone. When is this Prime Minister going to start restoring Canada's international credibility?
Honourable. Order. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the Conservatives who offer only divisive ideas and only try to divide Canadians, we are taking our relationships in the world seriously. We build allies, we build relationships, and we are constructively engaging in the world. The decisions he talks about are life-threatening decisions. These are arbitrary decisions by a Chinese government. We're working hard in a very concerted and organized way to address these deeply concerning decisions. We want to thank our allies like Australia, the EU, France, Germany for standing with us.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Lefort. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Arctic is a strategic region with huge potential. Yesterday, the American Secretary of State called Canada's claim to the Northwest Passage illegitimate, this calling into question Canada's sovereignty over the Arctic. The Liberals have lost control over our southern border. They are eroding our relations with our allies, and they couldn't care less about Canada's sovereignty in the north. What is the Prime Minister willing to do to show the international community that this part of the Arctic is Canadian? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, I'd ask the Honourable Member, has he ever been to the Arctic? As the Minister of Foreign Affairs clearly stated today, Canada is very clear about the Northwest Passage being Canadian. Our Arctic sovereignty is long-standing, well-established. The Minister attended the Arctic Council meeting in Finland this week to reiterate this and to advocate for Canadian interests. Canada remains committed to exercising the full extent of its rights and sovereignty over our territory.
Order, order. I'm sure honourable colleagues have confidence in the ability of members to answer arguments here. And on both sides, within the rule, order. The member for Carleton will come to order and show respect for the direction of the chair.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Lefort. Mr. Speaker, another day, another failure for the Liberals. Yesterday's findings from the Macdonald-Laurier report were scathing. The report found that the Liberal government's decisions on replacements for fighter jets in Canada were made purely for political reasons and not in the national interest. What will the Liberal government do to fix this new fiasco? The Honourable Minister of Public Services.
Sure, all members in this House, and indeed all Canadians, that our process to procure 88 fighter jets will be open, fair, and transparent, and indeed competitive. Unlike the previous Conservative government, who couldn't even sole source a jet, we are destined and determined to deliver for the men and women in the Air Force to ensure they have the equipment they need to do the hard job we ask of them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
You know, all we got so far from the Liberals is a bunch of wore-out Aussie jets. Now, the Macdonald-Laurier Institute report says, and I quote, "The result of this government's policies, its ability to conduct its most basic function, the defense of Canadian sovereignty, and that of our allies, is diminishing rapidly." Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop putting his own partisan interests ahead of Canada's national security?
Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
I'm happy to put our record on defence procurement against the Conservatives' record at any time. We have a fully costed defence policy. We've launched the future fight procurement for 88 jets. We've had the delivery of our first interim jet. We have the first large vessels in the water designed and built under the NSS. We have the first OFSV. We have the first AOPS. 2 more are in the works, and the 4th was just cut seal last week. We have the contract for sale for fixed-wing search and rescue aircraft, and of course the Canada Surface Combatants. There's lots more after that.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman. Order.
Mr. Speaker, I guess she's the architect of this fighter jet fiasco. Now, the Liberals' excuses of betraying our armed forces won't fix the bridges they've already burned with our allies. Now, letters in the report proves that the Prime Minister has betrayed Canada on the world stage. So quote the report, and it says, "The present government policies have dealt a blow to Canada-U.S. defence relations, the bedrock of the country's security." Yes. When will the Prime Minister stop undermining Canada's relationship with our closest ally and defence partner?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
I'm very proud of the relations that we have built with the United States. The NORAD mission that we have with the U.S. is a cornerstone. We have actually put this into our defense policy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the most important aspects of it, where the Conservatives could not even just replace our aircraft, they actually only wanted 65, Mr. Speaker. We conducted a thorough analysis where we will be purchasing 88 aircraft that will meet the needs for North American defense. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Wouldn't you believe it? Over 8 million Canadians can't talk to a real person when they call government call centers. Whether it's about their EI, their pensions, or immigration matters, call centers are a dead end. It's so bad at IRCC that over 70% of the callers couldn't even get through. That's 1.2 million people. And no wonder there is no service standards. No standard on access, no standard on timeliness, no standard on accuracy. Do the Liberals not believe that Canadians deserve the most basic level of service from their government?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Member for the question. We welcome the recommendations from the Auditor General's report. Budget 2019 provides over $42.9 million investment that will allow IRCC to more than fund 170 full-time agents over 2 years to respond to people's questions. We've already extended hours in our call centers. We've introduced access to people in our call centers on Saturdays. We're introducing more help through email, social media, and a chatbot that learns as it proceeds to answer all the routine questions, Mr. Speaker. We are committed to doing better.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the Auditor General blamed the Canada Revenue Agency for its poor management of its call centres. Well, imagine. Today we learned that that's not the only agency turning away people. It's happening at all levels and all services. Really, why is it that when Mr. Bromfin or some other wealthy company calls the government, they listen right away. But when ordinary people call, they're just turned away. That's not a government serving people. That's a government serving its Liberal Party friends. When will the government learn to do something as simple as answering the phone? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is determined to improve services so that they meet the needs of Canadians, contrary to Harper's Conservatives, who decided to reduce the amount of money, the number of hours being spent on call centers. This government decided to invest in infrastructure, and I'm very pleased to say that we are migrating to a new phone platform that is modern and that has been implemented over the past few months. The results are encouraging, and I will have more to tell you in a few weeks.
For Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, high gas prices are hurting the most vulnerable across British Columbia. This week, we learned that cancer patients are having services cut, and that's because volunteer drivers can't afford to drive them anymore. Wow. In my riding of British Columbia, people have to drive sometimes 6 hours for their radiation therapy. Canadians suffering with cancer are paying the full price of this Prime Minister's carbon tax and failure to get the Trans Mountain Pipeline built. When he said he wanted high gas prices, is this what he meant?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank the Honourable Member for her question, and I'd like to direct her to the Parliamentary Budget Officer's recent report, which confirmed exactly what we have been saying the entire time. Our plan to put a price on pollution is not only going to reduce emissions, it's going to make life more affordable for 8 out of 10 Canadian households. At the same time, we're moving forward with a theme of our government to ensure that the economy works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. We cut taxes for the middle class and ask the 1% to pay more. We've introduced the Canada Child Benefit, which put more money in the pockets of 9 out of 10 Canadian families. We're ensuring our government works for everyone, Mr. Speaker, and it's disappointing the Conservatives vote against us every step of the way.
Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, all throughout Canada, people are suffering because of the failures of this Liberal government. Over and over again, they have taken actions that raise the price of gas, deepening the Liberal affordability crisis. In my province, we're forced to rely on American fuel because of the failure by this government to approve the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It's time to stop punishing Canadians. When will this government revoke its carbon tax and approve the pipelines we need to ensure Canadian fuels can get to consumers affordably?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member and his party is really serious about moving forward on the Trans Mountain Pipeline process in the right way, they would not have voted to defund and kill a process that will get us to a decision. We are moving forward on this process with meaningful consultation with Indigenous communities. We are engaged with them. We are offering accommodations to their outstanding issues, and we are scheduled to make a decision on this. Our hope is to make a decision on this project by June 18th.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
When we first raised concerns about the carbon tax, the Prime Minister said, "Don't worry, look how successful it has been in British Columbia." Yeah. Then he traveled there and said, $1.69 a litre gas is exactly what we want. Now British Columbia has the highest gas prices in the history of North America. Is this what the Prime Minister wanted to replicate when he announced his new carbon tax?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
The honourable member knows that our plan to put a price on pollution simply doesn't apply in British Columbia because they implemented their own plan several years back. Mr. Speaker, what I'm curious is whether the honourable member, like his Conservative colleagues, is misleading Canadians by refusing to advise them that in fact they can claim the climate action incentive. I'm also curious whether the honourable member will be claiming his own climate action incentive that's going to put $307 in the pockets of an average family for in Ontario. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, for 80% of Canadians, they can expect to have more money in their pockets after this plan is implemented. I don't know why he's campaigning on a promise to take that money away.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, actually, the federal carbon tax rules do apply in British Columbia, because if the province wanted to cancel its carbon tax, this Prime Minister would reimpose it. Furthermore, he has used the Liberal carbon tax from BC as the model for the whole country, where the tax will rise another 250%. Why won't he admit the consequence will be the same right across the country as it's been in BC? $1.80 a litre taxes on your gas and higher prices for Canadian families.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The honourable member is using twisted logic in an attempt to mislead Canadians, which should not be surprising, because that is the only climate plan the Conservative put forward, has been to misrepresent our plan because they simply do not have one of their own. The fact of the matter is is, Mr. Speaker, you don't have to take my word for it. The Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that 8 out of 10 Canadian families who are subjected to the federal backstop will have more money in their pockets after the climate action incentive. It's disappointing in the extreme that the Conservatives won't put forward a plan of their own and instead are on campaigning on a commitment to take money away from their constituents.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, last year the Prime Minister was in the Saguenay region to reassure workers about aluminum in the face of Trump's protectionism. 1 year later, the tariffs still stand, and the new Canada-US-Mexico agreement does not provide for their elimination. Yesterday, the Municipal Council of the City of Saguenay passed a motion calling for the lifting of these tariffs. The NDP's position is clear. The agreement should not be ratified until the tariffs are lifted. Will the government confirm today in this House that they will not ratify the agreement until the tariffs are lifted? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The illegal and unjustified U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum have to be lifted. That's a message we're delivering to the U.S. constantly, and it's working. Both Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. Congress have called for the removal of these tariffs. As Senator Chuck Grassley, the Republican chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, said recently in the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. administration should, and I quote, take the lead by promptly lifting tariffs on steel and aluminum from Canada and Mexico.
Well, member for Essex.
I don't know, Mr. Speaker, what the Liberals' definition of working is. The Liberals promised to defend the Canadian steel industry when they signed the new NAFTA, but the numbers of layoffs we've seen over the past 6 months tell a different story. 12 layoffs at Novatube in Montreal, 50 layoffs at Ivaco Rolling Mills in Ontario, 228 layoffs at Evraz in Calgary, 230 layoffs at Tenaris in Sault Ste. Marie. These are not just numbers, these are real people, and they're struggling to make ends meet. How many more Canadians will have to lose their jobs before the Liberals take action to end Trump's tariffs on steel?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear in supporting the steel and aluminum workers. We took immediate action when those tariffs were imposed. Those unjust, unfair tariffs were imposed by the Americans for dollar retaliation. We also introduced safeguards. And above and beyond that, Mr. Speaker, we introduced a $2 billion support package for our steel and aluminum workers. We're going to continue to support this sector for years to come, Mr. Speaker, and we have their back.
The Honourable Member for Avalon.
Mr. Speaker, by introducing Canada's first ever national housing strategy, this government has demonstrated an unprecedented commitment to giving more Canadians a place to call home. Since taking office in 2015, we've invested more than $7 billion in housing and helped more than 1 million Canadians find safe, affordable places to call home. Could the Minister responsible for housing tell the House how the recent agreement between Canada and Newfoundland and Labrador will help more people across our province have access to affordable and dignified housing?
Great question.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the member of Avalon for his hard work and excellent question. We believe every Canadian should have access to a safe and affordable home, and that's why we were so proud in November 2017 to introduce the first ever national housing strategy, which is going to lift 500,000 Canadian families out of housing conditions that are unsafe or unaffordable. And that's why we're so proud to sign just a few weeks ago an agreement with the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, a $270 million agreement that will give the province more help to lift more people in the province out of housing needs that are unacceptable in 2019.
Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal carbon tax that the current government has imposed has a direct impact on the cost of shipping goods. That means, Mr. Speaker, that Quebec families will have to pay more for groceries because it costs more to ship fruits and vegetables and food. And that is the reality. The Liberal carbon tax will have absolutely no impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Do the Liberals understand that their tax is a tax measure and not an environmental one?
Mr. Speaker, on the member's final point, I direct him to the decision of the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal when, in fact, they confirmed that because the revenues go directly to residents, this is a regulatory charge and not a tax. With respect to his allegation that the goods and services are going to somehow increase, again, I'd refer to the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report, who corrected certain Conservative MPs by pointing out that his analysis factored in goods and services when he confirmed that 8 out of 10 Canadian families would have more money in their pockets after the year had ended. Mr. Speaker, the fact is this plan is going to have a meaningful impact on emissions, make families better off, and it's disappointing the Conservatives won't do the right thing and are campaigning to take money from their constituents.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, you know, it's interesting when he talks about Saskatchewan, but my question was about Quebecers. Now, speaking of Quebec, the experience in Quebec has taught us that taxing carbon doesn't have an effect on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. A report tabled by ministers a few months ago shows that in 2014, 2015, and 2016, under the carbon tax in Quebec, there was no lowering of emissions. So again, will the Liberals finally understand that the Liberal carbon tax is a tax measure and not an environmental one?
The Secretary for Domestic Environment.
The honourable member's fascination with our plan so curious when he knows that it simply does not apply in Quebec. But one thing that I can confirm for you, Mr. Speaker, is that Quebecers know that climate change is real, and they believe that we have an obligation and an opportunity to do something about it. We know what the solutions are to face the greatest challenges of our time. We know that the most effective thing that we can do to transition to a low-carbon economy is to put a price on pollution and return revenues to Canadian families. If you don't believe me, you can look at Mark Cameron, Stephen Harper's former Director of Policy, Preston Mann. You can look at Doug Ford's Chief Budget Advisor, who actually testified to that in the Senate in 2016, Mr. Speaker. It's time.
Honourable Member for Chilliwack. Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
People in my riding are paying over $1.50 a litre for gasoline today, with prices nearing $1.80 in Metro Vancouver. These prices are fueled by the government's insistence on a carbon tax and the Liberals' inability to get the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion built. These high gas prices are making one of the most unaffordable regions in North America even more expensive. When the Prime Minister was asked about gas prices like these, he said this is exactly what we want. Why does the Prime Minister continue to celebrate every time the price at the pump goes up, leaving Canadian families with less money in their pockets?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I have been taking questions in this chamber for a number of months from the Conservatives, and not once have the Conservatives asked us a question that indicated they were willing to do more to protect our environment. The fact is, climate change is an existential threat, not only to Canada, but to the entire world community. The fact is, we've put forward a plan that has 50 measures that are going to combat climate change. They're trying to grab lightning and campaign on misinformation that they think will pander to the masses, but they do not have any ideas, so they mislead Canadians about ours. It's time that they take climate change seriously, because that's Canadians want us to do. And with respect to our plan, we know it's going to leave them.
Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that Liberal member has just made it clear. He thinks that the consumers in my riding, the people that have to drive to work, drive to school, drive their parents to doctor's appointments, they need to pay more. Well, I have news for him, Mr. Speaker. I don't work for liberal, wealthy elites who have money to just throw around at high gas prices. Every dollar that they spend extra at the pump comes out of their pockets.
Order. Order on both sides. Order. I'm sorry. Members know that they can't be heckling throughout the question period and then insist on the application of the rules strictly towards somebody else. Let's have the conclusion of the question. Order. I asked both sides, I said, to come to order. Order.
Get over it, Phil. Baby.
The member for Newmarket Aurora will also come to order. No more outbursts from him. The member for Chilliwack Hope.
My constituents don't have an expense account, they don't have a trust fund, they don't have a motorcade to take them anywhere that they need to go. So when will these Liberals stop punishing middle-class Canadians and raising the price of gas at the pump?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, the honourable member's feigned sanctimony and frankly his hypocrisy is disappointing in the extreme. He knows that in provinces where our plan applies, 8 of 10 families will be better off at the end of the year. But what's extraordinarily disappointing, Mr. Speaker, is when he had the chance to support the middle-class tax cut for 9 million Canadians that raised taxes on the wealthiest 1%, he voted against it. When he had the chance to support the Canada Child Benefit, ending sending childcare checks to millionaires so we could put more money in the pockets of 9 out of 10 Canadian families, he voted against it. And when he had the opportunity to support vulnerable, low-income seniors, he voted against it too. Now he stands up and has the audacity to lecture me on a...
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
The United Nations report on endangered species hits close to home in my riding of Windsor West. The Ojibwe Shores, the last remaining stretch of natural shoreline on the Detroit River, is home to over 160 species and has been the center of a battle to protect our environment. We stopped the clear cutting of the trees and dumping on this pristine piece of nature. I have asked the government many times to protect this public property. All I have gotten is excuse after excuse, no real action. The UN was clear. Different choices get better results. Why won't the Prime Minister protect Ojibwe Shores? Why is there really just a real action zero? Here, here.
The Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, the Ojibwe Shores is property of the Windsor Port Authority. I would encourage the City of Windsor to speak with the Windsor Port Authority with respect to the future of Ojibwe Shores.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. If you listen to the Liberals, it sounds like they're really concerned about climate change and they want to defend the environment. But the problem is that the reality is quite different. Between 2016 and 2017, our greenhouse gas emissions skyrocketed by 8 million tons. That's 8 million tons of an increase when they should be going down. And it's probably even worse because one study has recently shown that oil sands emissions were underestimated by as much as 37%. When will the Liberals stop giving millions of dollars to oil companies and start forcing them to be transparent with people?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, I trust the honourable member knows that there was an artificial suppression in emissions level as a result of the forest fires in Fort McMurray. It's disappointing that we rely on these kinds of anomalies to try to make a political point. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the issue of fossil fuel subsidies, when it comes to tax measures, we actually have phased out 8 tax measures to date, and we've launched a consultation to identify further ineffective non-tax fossil fuel subsidies by 2025. We are going to move forward in that direction, Mr. Speaker. Our climate plan has over 50 measures that are going to help reduce emissions. We have become a global leader when it comes to protecting the environment because we know that climate change is real and that we have an obligation to do something about it.
The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first the Prime Minister used political interference to help his friends at SNC, and now he's politically interfering to punish those who get in his way. The former Parliamentary Secretary of Foreign Affairs has resigned and will testify against this government for Admiral Mark Norman. What will he say that is so damaging that he had to resign to say it, and that he needs a lawyer paid for by the Crown to advise him on how to say it? What are the Liberals hiding? When will the Prime Minister provide all unredacted documents and allow Admiral Norman a fair trial?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the prosecution in question is being handled by the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, which operates independently from the Department of Justice and independently from my office. Counsel to the Attorney General of Canada has been fulfilling all of its obligations, Mr. Speaker, before the court with respect to third-party records applications. Mr. Speaker, and counsel is, when counsel is needed, those decisions are made according to the rules and regulations in the Justice Department.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, May 3rd, we learned that a Liberal MP was going to testify against the Liberal government in the Mark Norman trial. The Liberal government has tried by any means to discredit the Davie Shipyard through political interference from influential cabinet members. Mr. Speaker, the Davie Shipyard has the ability to do the work on time and on budget. Quebec deserves better. Why did the Liberals try to deny the Davie Shipyard the contract? Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, the trial in question is being led by the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, which is independent from the Department of Justice and from Cabinet. The Council is fulfilling all of their obligations as far as third-party records applications are concerned. As I just said, Mr. Speaker, this case is currently before the courts, and it would be inappropriate to comment further.
Member for Thornhill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's review the Liberals' political vendetta against Vice Admiral Norman. Obstructing subpoenas, clear political interference, refusing to cover his legal costs, pushing him toward bankruptcy, unable to defend himself, won't release documents critical to his defense, demoted the Foreign Affairs Parliamentary Secretary because he will testify for Admiral Norman against the government. Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals so intent on denying a fair trial for a Canadian who served Canada so honorably?
Well said. Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the Public Prosecution Service of Canada has itself said, and I quote, "The PPSC has not sought or received instructions in respect of the prosecution of Mr. Norman from the Privy Council Office or any other government department or body." Mr. Speaker, the Public Prosecution Service of Canada is independent of the Ministry of the Attorney General, is independent of the Department of Justice, makes its decisions independently, Mr. Speaker, and will continue to do so.
Député de Saint-Laurent.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, every 17 minutes, the Francophone Quebec of Ottawa share stories of sexual abuse and survival. And we should remember that a woman is sexually assaulted every 17 minutes in Canada.
To renewed commitment to end gender-based violence. Unfortunately, organizations like CALEX are asked to do more with less resources after the Ford decision to cut their funding. La ministre des Femmes et de l'Égalité.
Can the Minister for Gender Equality tell this House what our government is doing to support victims of sexual assault?
Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of cuts by the Harper Conservatives, organizations serving women and girls were destabilized. Our government listened to Canadians and invested in ensuring that survivors of gender-based violence have the supports they need. It's unfortunate that even in the wake of Me Too and evidence that's been shared again and again, we see the Ford government repeat the Harper playbook. We see our Conservative colleagues and even the NDP vote to defund women's organizations. Canadians deserve a government committed to ensuring survivors have a place to go when they need the supports they need. We are committed to that work.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Earlier in question period, the Prime Minister tried to blame his illegal border crossing crisis on Stephen Harper.
Of course.
So in 2015, there were 10,000 pending cases at the Immigration Refugee Board, up from a peak left under the previous Liberal government. Today, under the Auditor General report, there are 71,000 cases, with another 50,000 on the way. So a question for the Prime Minister. When will he clear this backlog? Or will Conservatives once again have to clear a 120,000 case backlog at the IRB?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. Here are the facts. The party opposite cut refugee health care. The party opposite left the IRB with no funding necessary to deal with the volumes that they had. The party opposite is intent to get away from the record that they have. But facts are stubborn things, Mr. Speaker, and they cannot get away from those from that record. The fact is we are reinvesting in the border. We are reinvesting in the Immigration Refugee Board. We are making sure that we have vacancies left behind by the previous government to make sure that the refugee system works.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, while the government announced free menstrual products in federally regulated workplaces, product cost and access in remote and northern communities is prohibitive and unacceptable. Because of that high cost and lack of government action, organizations like women's shelters are left to collect donations of products to distribute to women and girls in the north and in our communities. In fairness to disadvantaged women and girls in the north and everywhere, when will the Liberal government extend the provision of free menstrual products to women and girls?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's fantastic that we're having a conversation about menstrual products here in the House of Commons. I agree with the member opposite that we need to make sure that women can take care of their health and dignity no matter where they are. That's why we're taking these steps to ensure that menstrual products are available in bathrooms and washrooms of federally regulated employers. It's an important step, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to hearing from stakeholders about how we do this in an effective way.
Honourable Member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, nearly 7 years ago, the Harper Conservatives made irresponsible and short-sighted changes to the asylum system that forced tens of thousands of refugee claimants into limbo for years. 32,000 people who were seeking Canada's protection were denied a timely hearing and spent as long as 8 years with uncertain status, unable to move on with their lives. Davenport groups like FCJ Refugee Centre have been advocating on their behalf. Can the minister update the House on what has been done to address the legacy refugee backlog? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Great question. Honourable Minister of Immigration.
The fact of the matter is, due to the half-baked measures introduced by the Harper Conservatives, the IRB developed a backlog of 32,000 refugee cases. We promised that those people, some of whom were waiting for a hearing for as long as 8 years, we promised that we would do better. One of the first things we did is to launch a legacy refugee task force, and I'm happy to update this House that we have cleared that backlog as of last week. We will make sure that the refugee system works the way it's supposed to, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Mr. Speaker, Iran's Revolutionary Guard has a long record of torturing, jailing, and murdering their own citizens and exporting terror throughout the Middle East and across the world. The threat to Canada and our allies is crystal clear. Last year, the Liberals voted in favour of our motion to hold the Iranian Khomeini regime accountable and list the IRGC as a terrorist entity. Is the government starting to cozy up to Iran again, or are they finally going to list the IRGC as a terrorist entity?
The Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman knows, being a long-standing member of the House, that there is a very specific legal procedure that is undertaken with respect to listings under the criminal code. The system in Canada is strong and credible because of the integrity of that system. The government is pursuing all of the steps that are laid out in law to make the appropriate decision. And in the meantime, he will know that a number of the surrogates of this organization have already been listed.
Right.
Honourable member for La Pointe-de-L'Île. Mr. Speaker, the government's management of the migration crisis has been a disaster, as the Auditor General's report has shown. Criminal background checks for asylum seekers are insufficient. Departments are working overtime. 2/3 of hearings have been put off to who knows when. And if Ottawa doesn't wake up and smell the coffee, it could take 5 years for asylum seekers to find out if they can stay in Canada or Quebec or not. The system is broken, Mr. Speaker. When will the government wake up?
Honourable Minister of Border Security.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to be able to advise this House that so far this year we've achieved a 47% reduction in the number of people who are crossing our borders irregularly. But in Budget 2019, and I understand the member opposite may have missed this because of all the noise that was going on that day, but our government has committed $443 million to increase IRCC's capacity. It includes $375 million to restore the CBSA's ability to increase their asylum system, to implement border enforcement strategy, and which includes better border management, security screening, and enforcement operations. Mr. Speaker, our plan is working, and we're making progress.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-L'Île. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, the situation is getting worse. It's inhumane to make asylum seekers wait years to find out if they can stay in Quebec. This will undoubtedly, again, lead to people who have settled here and had children here, and then who will then be deported 5 years down the road. And during those 5 years, who will pay for it? Well, Quebec will pay for housing, healthcare, education, and social assistance. Will the Liberal government reimburse Quebec the $300 million it's already spent and take action to process application within a reasonable timeline? The Honourable Minister for Social Development. Mr. Speaker, I'm thrilled to be able to answer this question because, as you know well, Quebec has a remarkable history of openness and welcoming immigrants. That started in my own riding in 1535 when Jacques Cartier arrived and was welcomed by the Huron chief at the time, where he found that Canada was a country of openness and solidarity. We are proud in Quebec to be part of that great tradition.
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, as the independent whip, it falls to me to congratulate Paul Manley on last night's by-election win in Nanaimo Ladysmith. Including him, we will have 21 independent MPs sharing only 14 weekly spots in question period. Would the Prime Minister support reallocating more questions to independents so that Mr. Manley and all of us can better represent our constituents?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
All MPs are elected to this place to represent their constituents, and question period is 45 minutes of the day to do so. And, Mr. Speaker, there is a formula to determine the number of questions for each party and for independents. Mr. Speaker, you ruled that the current allotment of 14 questions per week for independents maintains the appropriate balance with respect to management of time, the rights of independent members, and the long-standing practice of this House. Mr. Speaker, we will respect that ruling, and we know that we have seen the number of questions for independents increase since we took office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Dr. Artis Pabriks, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defence of the Republic of Latvia. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader is rising on a point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. First, let me just recognize and appreciate the support from the member from Elmwood, Transcona. Mr. Speaker, there have been discussion among the parties, and if you seek it, I hope you will find unanimous consent for the following motion: that the House of Commons recognize the historical significance of the Winnipeg General Strike of 1919, in particular on workers' rights, human rights, and social advocacy for over the past 100 years.
Hear, hear. Will member have the unanimous consent of the House propose the motion? I think I've heard some no's. No, there's no unanimous consent. The honourable
member for Repentigny is rising on a point of order. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that you will find unanimous consent for the following motion: that this House oppose the construction of new pipelines because that would harm the environment. And as the Leader of the Opposition said on December 2nd, I'm sorry, but it's already very clear that there is no unanimous consent.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake Eastman is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, during question period, I referenced the McDonald-Laurier Institute's new